Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Now, apparently there was like a 10-hour mediation between Canelo, Golden Boy and DAZN to reach an agreement to try and settle this outside of the courts with whatever is going on between Canelo, DAZN and Golden Boy. Now, Canelo obviously has been previously a very active fighter. I mean, he's had over 50 fights in his career, so ultimately he wants to remain an active fighter, and that hasn't been the case recently. And of course, that is part and parcel with this coronavirus pandemic. So that cannot be helped in one way, but in another, he did have a potential fight coming up, and it was ordered by the WBC for him to face Yieldrum for the vacant WBC super middleweight world title. And apparently, that was a part of Canelo's privileges as a franchise champion in the middleweight division. He gets to decide who he fights for a vacant world title in the super middleweight division. He chose Yieldrum because I guess he's ranked number 1 by the WBC as a super middleweight. How that is another thing entirely, because he lost his last fight in a vacant WBC world title fight against Anthony Dirrell. So how Yieldrum was ever number 1 by the WBC is baffling completely, but ultimately that's the case, and Canelo wanted to fight him for a vacant WBC world title. DAZN though, the broadcaster, rejected that fight. I mean, they were guaranteeing to pay Canelo $35 million per fight for Yieldrum, and you can kind of see why they would not want to do that, but also it's in the contract, it's part of the agreement. So ultimately, DAZN were going to stand strong, and also Canelo was going to stand strong. He can earn that kind of money for fighting whoever he wanted. So Canelo was being inactive, and that fight was rejected and put on hold because of DAZN and Golden Boy. So Canelo obviously sought to take that further by taking them to court to try and make sure that he stands strong with his position. Now, hopefully they have come to some sort of agreement that would mean that Canelo actually still fights this year, and potentially that could be Smith, it could still be Saunders. Unlikely, but still possible. So what the new agreement would say is that Canelo earns $20 million per fight, and whatever subscribers he brings in, or whatever money he brings in with that fight, he gets a bonus on top of that. So he gets that purse regardless of who he fights and what money it generates. If it generates nothing, like nothing at all, he still gets that kind of money. But if he fights someone like Gennady Golovkin, that would bring in a lot of money, he gets a big bonus as well. And because of new subscriptions to DAZN, he gets a bonus. So that could see him earning more money than the previously agreed $35 million per fight. And for Canelo to be earning $35 million per fight is just not plausible in the current climate, especially against someone like Yieldrum. I mean, if they put that on pay-per-view, $70 for that, it's not going to generate $20 million for Canelo to be fighting Yieldrum. So this deal is adjusted, it works better for Canelo. But ultimately, does he want to take risky fights back to back? Well, he's done it in his last 5 fights. He's laid down that kind of precedent, so why not continue with that? I mean, Canelo is good enough. He's an elite level fighter, so ultimately he can do that. He can continuously fight back to back top opponents. He's 30 years old in his prime. Those are the kind of fights that he should be having at this point in his career, just to see how good he really is. We know he's a brilliant fighter, but I mean, a trilogy with Gennady Golovkin, a fight with Callum Smith, a fight with Billy Joe Saunders. Just brilliant fights, the fights we want to see. And given the current climate, given the current landscape, when is $35 million per fight going to be plausible for Canelo again? In a fight with Yieldrum, maybe before the pandemic it would have been possible. Maybe before this, DAZN wouldn't have even batted an eyelid at paying him that kind of money. But it's different now. Things are very different in boxing. Things are very different in sports as a whole. The money is not there because fans are not there. The live gates are not there. So ultimately they have to find another way to generate that kind of money. And if they cannot, then someone's going to have to take a hit. Or everyone is. Promoters, fighters, trainers, all of them. They're going to have to take a pay cut because the kind of money that they are used to just isn't there anymore. And we are in the process of rebuilding the sport of boxing. Things have to start again and get going. Without fans, ultimately that's where it's going to be for the rest of the year. Maybe even for some of next year. But that's just the way it is. And I do hope that there is a resolution to this problem between DAZN, Canelo and Golden Boy. Because if there is not, then Canelo has another court case to put forward on the 28th of September. And ultimately, how long is it going to be after that for them to go back and forth with this? Time is more important than money. Canelo is 30 years old, in the prime of his career. He's got plenty of money, and I'm not saying he shouldn't have any more, but he's got plenty of money. But time is one thing you cannot buy. Time waits for no man or woman in the sport of boxing. As a sports person, time does not wait for you. So he has to seize any opportunity he can to get back into the ring. Not for the money, for his career. And I would say the same thing applies to every single boxer. In fact, every single sports person. Get back in there, do your sport while you can, because ultimately we don't know how long this is going to last. And fans, no fans, more money, less money, ultimately that's not the reason why they do these kind of sports. That's not the reason why Canelo started boxing, I would imagine. Not for the money, because he loves the sport. Same with sports as a whole. Guys, anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below, leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new. Thanks guys.